Are you ready to know what you don't know about social media? Well, then you're in the right place. This is the Seb Rust Show on Social Buzz on Air. Social Media Radio. Bringing you tips, tricks, tools, and extreme value. Broadcasting from our studio in Miami. And now, here's your host, Sebastian Rust.
When I was supposed to go back to work, I decided not to go back for personal reasons, and just the way I wanted to live my life was not how I was living it in that career. And I dropped everything and I started my podcast and my brand, and really wanted to have fulfilling conversations with people that were going through their own healing journeys and talk about alternative medicine and ways that we can heal physically and emotionally through Ayurveda and functional medicine and spiritual development, because that is the way I've healed my body. And so I know that so many people don't have access to that the way I do. And I realized that having those resources and that information is so important, because over 50 million Americans are living with some type of chronic illness or autoimmune disease. And if I can be some sort of a bright light or voice in that community, then I know that I'm doing the right thing.
What's happening, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Seb Rust Show. I am your host, Sebastian Rust. As always, welcome to the show. Hey, thanks so much for taking time to hang out with me for a few minutes. I really hope that you do get some nuggets of valuable information. That is, in fact, why I do this show. My guest this week, I discovered a few years back while watching a baseball game. That's right, she was a sports broadcaster in the Los Angeles area covering the Dodgers and a few other professional teams, and quickly realized that she was not doing the work that she loved. Even though she went to school at the best place to go to school for sports broadcasting, USC, she was not satisfied with the work that she was doing. In addition to that, she had been misdiagnosed for years with ailments that were incorrect. So she quit her job, set out on a journey to heal herself, and that's exactly what took place. Now, during this healing journey, she decided to launch her own personal brand and podcast. The podcast is called This Is the Platform. The focus of the content is how she helps women heal chronic pain and fatigue with functional medicine and spiritual development. So to say that Kelli's doing work that matters would probably be an understatement. She clearly is, and I love connecting and meeting with people who are doing heart-based work and things that matter, things that impact other people's lives. So friends, if you could please put your virtual hands together and give a warm Seb Rust Show welcome to Kelli Tennant. Kelli Tennant, what's happening?
Not much. How's it going?
Oh, just, embracing the brunt of winter here in Miami as I had to grab a light jacket. It was 55 degrees this morning. You guys have had some interesting weather out there in Los Angeles, huh?
It's finally sunny today. It has been so cold and pouring rain. All the streets have been flooded. So you know how LA people are. We can't function at all. So the amount of accidents and people not making it to work, I'm sure, is through the roof.
As if Los Angeles traffic wasn't bad enough. Let's throw some rain in the mix, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, we can't. We're just terrible.
I enjoy like the 3 days of cool weather that come here, but that's just about it. And then it was snowing in Vegas, like right next door a couple of weeks ago.
So odd, I know.
My goodness. Well, so it's great to have you on the show. You and I were chatting a little bit before we got started here that I couldn't remember where I found you, and we don't know how we connect with people these days because the information moves so quick. But I am an avid sports fan, and I am almost positive back in 2016, I caught you covering a Dodgers game or something like that. And as most reporters have now, their Twitter handle everywhere, Instagram handle everywhere, as part of their lower third on television, etc. I like to connect with people because I always say it's the new media space versus like your traditional media space. So I always like to connect with peers that I have met or haven't met. And I think I followed you on Instagram and have just watched from afar here as your story has unfolded. And we chatted for a couple minutes before we got started here, but I'm excited to really unpack your journey and what your story has become through health, through your career, through sports, through helping people. So let's not waste any time. Let's just jump right into it. So you're a Southern California girl, grew up in Temecula, and you went to USC. Let's start the story there.
Yeah, so small town girl, ended up at USC, and I was so blessed to be on a full ride scholarship playing volleyball. And I had the time of my life. We were a Final Four team, and it was such a beautiful experience. I'm so glad I ended up there. But during my time, I ended up getting really sick. So at 19, I had to quit the volleyball team completely, and I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And I one day went from being in the best shape of my life, this kick-ass 19-year-old, top level college volleyball player that's squatting heavier than most guys ever could, to the next day, I can't feel my left leg. I can't stand up straight. I'm in extreme pain. I can't see anything. There's like extreme blurriness and brain fog. And I feel this wave of depression over me, and I can't even walk 5 feet without being exhausted. And so you can imagine the panic and the fear that comes with that, especially at such a young age when you are so healthy. And so I went through the whole gamut of doctors and world-renowned doctors trying to figure out what was going on. Some of them thought I had cancer. Some said brain tumor, or you broke your back, or you have a torn disc, but nothing was showing on any of the scans. So everyone was kind of confused. They ended up giving me 3 epidurals and a bunch of bottle of pills to try and just numb everything and say, well, we hope this helps you feel better, and sent me on my way with no real answers. And so after 2 years of living with that protocol of just drugging myself and hallucinating and seeing people in my apartment that were not ever there, I decided that I wanted to go holistic, because I felt like at such a young age, this can't be the way I'm going to live my life. This can't be it. And so I cold turkey went off every single drug I was on, and I started treating myself through food. And what I realized is that food is really powerful and can be a huge trigger. And at the time, I was 21, and so I still didn't know very much, but I knew I was moving in the right direction. And so I started cutting things out, and I started seeing that there was definite improvement, and quality of life was better. It wasn't great, but it was better than being bedridden and thinking I had cancer.
Right.
And so during this time, I was also going full go into television. My dream was always to be on TV. And that's why I went to USC, because they had the best broadcast school in the country. And so luckily my peeps rallied around me and made sure that I had all of the opportunities to do television at school. So I was covering the USC football team, and would go out and I'd work out with them, in the previous summers at 6 a.m. And then I turned into the reporter at 6 a.m. that was interviewing them during practices and workouts. And so that was really fun and great experience, because they were all my friends that I was raging with as well. So we would just go out and drink the night before, and then I'd end up interviewing them the next morning. And, that made for a very interesting experience into television.
I bet.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. And at the time, the USC football team was very good. So you're looking at some of the best players in the NFL in the last 5 years. And I just look back and think, oh my God, what were we doing?
Yeah. What years? What year was that? Because I was out there from 2001 to 2008.
Yeah, I was 05 to 09. So my freshman year was Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, that whole thing.
Oh my gosh. Holy
Yeah,
cow.
and then it was Clay Matthews and Ray Maluga and Mark Sanchez. That was my whole class. So it was
Well, that was when USC could not lose.
Yeah, it was pretty great.
The Pete Carroll days. So listen, I'm a diehard Canes fan, and when I lived out there, East Coast sports don't matter. SEC doesn't matter. None of that matters out there. It's UCLA or USC, and that's pretty much it for California. So being out there and exposed to those glory years was a good time.
Yeah, I remember calling my mom one day, and I didn't really know much about any of these people until I got to school, but she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm having dinner with Pete Carroll and Reggie Bush." And she's like, "Who are you?"
That is so great.
So I was going through that whole experience of trying to be in television and get my reel together so that when I graduated, I could get a job. And luckily, I had met people at ESPN from playing volleyball, because they used to cover our matches so much because we were a top team. So I went straight to the producers at ESPN and said, this is what I want to do. Here's all of my experience. Here's what I'm about. And they hired me at 21 as soon as I graduated. And that started me on my big girl journey in television. And I was at ESPN I did the Pac-12 network, Longhorn Network. I spent a year at E doing entertainment, and then I spent a year in New York City covering high school sports. And then I made my way back to LA because Time Warner Cable was starting their sports network. And so I came out to cover the Galaxy and the Sparks, and ended up being the main Lakers reporter and TV host, as well as the Dodgers. And so I would report at the field and host the shows there as well. And so I spent 5 years doing that, and all the while still extremely sick this entire time and still trying to figure out what's going on. And it wasn't until about 2018, late 2017, when I found a functional medicine doctor. And I had never known what that was, but I realized with him that I had been misdiagnosed for 13 years. So this entire time that I had been sick, I was seeing the wrong kind of doctor, and I never knew it because I just trusted that I was being sent to the best doctors in the world, and that I would do what they say and I was doing the right thing, when in reality it wasn't right and it wasn't good for me. And I really had Epstein-Barr and chronic fatigue syndrome, and a lot of different issues with my microbiome and leaky gut and SIBO and all of these things that doctors don't test for because they just don't know that they're supposed to. And so that changed everything. So I was down for the count for about 5 months at the end of 2017 and beginning of 2018, and I was on disability and on leave from work. And when I was supposed to go back to work, I decided not to go back for personal reasons, and just the way I wanted to live my life was not how I was living it in that career. And I dropped everything and I started my podcast and my brand, and really wanted to have fulfilling conversations with people that were going through their own healing journeys and talk about alternative medicine and ways that we can heal physically and emotionally through Ayurveda and functional medicine and spiritual development, because that is the way I've healed my body. And so I know that so many people don't have access to that the way I do. And I realized that having those resources and that information is so important, because over 50 million Americans are living with some type of chronic illness or autoimmune disease. And if I can be some sort of a bright light or voice in that community, then I know that I'm doing the right thing. So I just left it all behind, and I have loved every moment since. And it's really fulfilling, and I just love the work that we're doing.
I can tell. Wow. Well, first of all, congrats to you, and
Thanks.
And way to stay the course, even in the midst of, there's always something coming at us with life, but the true test is being able to go through that adversity. And you did that, and then also said, well, watch this, going to quit my job and launch my own brand. I'm going to help people doing it. So, hats off to you to that. That's really what it's all about. This day and age, I always like to say, it's doing shit that matters is what fills your cup, and really is the only thing that's sustainable that I see. And we have the unique ability to be able to do that now with this whole world of social media and digital storytelling, the way we do it. So let's talk about the podcast for a minute. So when you decided to launch your own brand, that was like your first move out of the gates. So how did that, why was it your first move out of the gates?
I like to think that I'm good at my job and what I do. And I think I'm really good at interviewing people and getting them to share important things. And what I found in my 10 plus years in television, especially in sports, is that I get 30 seconds to ask questions and I'm on my way. And what was happening is I'm in the locker room or the clubhouse, and you spend so much time with these people, you end up getting really close. Otherwise, it's a miserable experience. So you create these relationships, and I was the same age as most of the players I was covering anyway. So we're all going through kind of the same life shit. Right. And we would end up talking about, sometimes they would also have autoimmune diseases or issues with their gut. And so they were changing their diets, and the guys knew my whole story. And so they'd often tell me like, hey, I'm trying this vegan diet. This is what I'm eating. What do you think? Or my daughter's going through this thing right now. She's playing on her softball team. What was it like for you when you were that age playing volleyball? Many of them had been going through divorces or lost a loved one, or were being traded and just getting crushed in the media. And my heart went out to them. And so we really bonded in so many ways. And unfortunately, all of those conversations about mental health and struggles and body image and things like that were all off camera. And I thought, what is happening? These are the things that I want to know about, which means that there must be other people that are curious about this. And so I just knew that while I was at home for 5 months, just stewing, trying to figure out, one, how to feel better, and two, what I was going to do with my life and how I could ever even go back to work in this state, I just thought, what if I had these conversations on my terms and had them with women who, specifically, the majority of people I talk to are women by default, because that's what I know and that's the kind of energy I like to surround myself with.
I'm offended.
No offense to you. I've spent enough time with men. I've put in my time, okay?
Hey, it doesn't take much to get offended these days. You know?
Right? So what if I had these conversations about mental health, about body image, about being in chronic pain, about how to heal, about what to ask your doctor for, or alternative practices, and not just doing what people tell us to do? What if we talked about these things and really got into the depths of it and did that in order to help other people? Because me talking about it in a clubhouse with one person isn't really helping other people. I may help him and he may help me, but we're not helping a lot of people from it. And so I wanted to be able to impact as many people as possible with the conversations. And I always dreamt of having my own show and not being the hot chick on TV, which is really where I was cornered for most of my career. And so I'm not on camera anymore. And it really is about the value of my voice and the conversations that I'm able to run. And it's a great thing and I really enjoy it. And I just knew that I was meant for more. And this is just so happens to be the topics and the conversations that I ended up having.
Hashtag hot chick on TV.
Yeah.
I probably followed you on Instagram because of that. So guilty, but now look at us, huh? So I love that. And that was my first intuition, was that, you know, once you made a decision to get off camera for a reason. And, you know, I definitely agree. There is a lot more substance to a podcast conversation. You can dig a little bit deeper, number one. Number two, and as you know, I don't have this problem, and I'm sure you don't, but people are petrified of the camera. So I'm not. I'm like, over here. I'm over here. But most people are like, I don't want to be. So to be able to interview people, right? It's a lot easier just to say, hey. In fact, my agency launches podcasts for brands. So we had a new client we were onboarding this week, and she is a health insurance advisor, but she's got a very strong personal brand, and she was launching a podcast that has nothing to do with health insurance. It has to do with her. It's going to be called Alex, the Inspired Agent, and she just wants to interview female badasses like yourself that are making moves, doing really cool things, making a difference, building a brand. But one of the last things she said to me, we got done meeting, she goes, I think I'm going to really get into the groove of this because I don't have to do my hair. I don't have to throw makeup on. I don't have to be in front of a camera. I can just let my mind flow and speak. You can interview anybody all around the world. And I thought, yeah, it is becoming easier and easier. So, and nobody really knows about podcasting. Like, it's odd. There's about 56% of the population, from what I understand, consuming podcasts, which is mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was at this women's podcasting conference last year, and they were telling us about all the stats. And they said, if you really look at it, podcasting just really took off in 2016, which means it's in its infancy, which I thought I was so behind starting last year in 2018, yet I'm really still in the beginning stages. And there's no rules, there's no guidelines. We're making it up as we go, especially when you talk about ads and partnerships with brands and what that looks like and how podcasters can get paid. And I really feel like the sky's the limit. And they agreed. They said, look, anyone can have a podcast, but what's going to happen over the next 10 years is the really good ones, the people that are very good at their job, they're going to rise and they're going to stay. And all the other people that kind of just wanted to have a show for whatever reason, they're going to fall off. And so it's going to be this very, clear-cut market of really good shows to pick from, and that's where it's going to grow. So I'm curious to see what happens.
I really am too. I'm fired up about it. And the best part about it is that we get to make up the rules.
Yeah.
So, you know, and being able to get more granular with aligning ourselves with brands that are a fit to advertise and showcase on the show, so that it's not, a repeat of where traditional radio has become. Because, you know, I don't know about you, but I'm not longing to jump in my car and turn on the radio to be interrupted by another, Don Mealy Chevrolet ad that's talking over my favorite song. So, times are changing with that. It's really fun to see where it's going to go. And then the repurposing, I don't know. Sorry, do you do any video at all for your brand?
We did when we started, but people are just not watching the videos because if they have access to the audio, it's so much easier. And I even find myself not watching video and listening to the audio only, even if I have the option, because I can be in my car, I can be cooking,
Yep.
and I don't have to look at anything. So
Sure.
for right now, we're not doing video. Eventually, I'd like to get back to it, but I want to do it in the right way. And I don't know that anyone has figured that out yet.
No, I don't think so either. I like to, sometimes I go live, record my podcast if it's just me on a specific topic. Sometimes I'll record, when we're recording, go do a Zoom call and we'll be able to repurpose that, as video content. But as far as podcasting is in its own, specific lane, I think, which is great. You're exactly right. If you send me a link to your podcast, I can hit play, move on with my day, do whatever I'm doing around my office or house. And if I consume 75% of it, I consider it, an episode that I've listened to. A video, I guess it's just psychologically, I feel indebted to be able to sit and watch the whole thing. So,
yeah.
And then, what's happening now with voice and audio in general. I mean, we are living in such a voice era right now. And the fact that we can find out, or that we ran out of shampoo and order it while we're still in the shower, thanks to Alexa, is indication enough. But I also firmly think as technology continues to just explode with making sure that all of our life is less frictionless, because all of our information is under one username and password, like our Apple ID. Like we hop on an airplane, there's a TV in front of us, we log into Apple Podcasts or wherever people consume stuff, and all of our preset preferences are right there. We jump in a car, wherever we are. And I think it's just going to continue to become more and more of an environment where there is no friction. We just desire that because we live in this, well, if I don't, if it's one less thing I have to do, so be it. So, in addition to the podcast, you work with individuals. Do you work with individuals one-on-one, or is it showcasing them through the podcast? What other extensions of the brand are happening in addition to the podcast?
So right now we're creating courses, because what happened for me during my healing journey is that I felt really alone, especially at my age, to be this sick. When I thought I had fibromyalgia, they said, oh, wow, it's an anomaly that you're 19 and have this chronic illness. Most women, they don't even get it until they're in their 50s. So I'm like, cool, I'm the only 19-year-old on the planet with this horrible illness, and I have no one to talk to about it. And so I would do what my doctors would say, but I really felt like I was so isolated, and it was a really scary time. And so what I've created are online courses that teach everyone how to heal. So you heal your gut, you detox your life, you manage your stress. There are steps that you can take, and using food as medicine, but you do it within a community. So I lead these courses, but everyone comes together and can ask questions. And I was just on the phone with this woman yesterday who just joined our March course that's called Healing. And she said, well, what is it going to look like when I have a question? What do I do? I said, we have a Facebook group, and you ask the question there, because what I learned is that if you have that question, 100 other people in the course have that question too. And I want to make sure we address it for everyone, because we all need to know this information. And this is the only way that we can heal, is if we provide these resources and this kind of education, so that everyone knows what's going on with their body. And if something comes up, you eat something that bothers you and you're in pain the next day, and you didn't think that was a problem or a trigger, I can walk you through why that could potentially have been bothering you. And maybe there's something else going on. And so I'm really passionate about the courses that we're doing and the events we're doing as well. We just had our first event of the year this last weekend at Women's Space in Culver City, and it was called Gather, and it was a circle of about 35 women. And we had my psychic and intuitive guide speak, and then Paula Malice, who owns Women's Space, led us in a circle, and we talked about the divine feminine and how to really step into ourselves and let go of our limiting beliefs and our fears. And it was so beautiful. I mean, half the group is crying, talking about the different things they're going through, because they felt so safe and held in that space, that they were able to be so honest and truthful about the struggles they were going through, and they knew they wouldn't be judged. And that's why we don't share, is because we're scared to be judged and feel like a failure. And when you sit in that space that is created exactly for you so that you can grow and learn, then you can just let it all fall away. And so those are the types of things we're doing, and I'm really excited about it.
I could be, again, congrats. I'm thoroughly impressed and excited about the work that you're doing here. But I don't think that you launched a brand. I think that you launched a movement, Kelly.
Thank you.
Because, brands start every day. And of course, a brand's a part of that whole thing. But this work that you're doing is so heart-centered, based on experience and just life that has happened there. You took what seemed to be which was complete uncertainty and incorrect information, and turned it into correct information by really grabbing the bull by the horns and saying, you know what, I'm going to give this a shot myself, and I'm going to use food and natural medicine, and I'm going to identify people that can actually give me insight on it. Once that was, you were able to pull yourself out of it, and then once you did, you said, wait a second. That was a gnarly place that I was in mentally, physically, all of the above. And I recognize how I felt during those times. I can't be the only person out there that this has happened to. Let's start a podcast and a brand to start having a conversation about this and helping people. So, and again, that's what I get from you telling me that. I could be off by a few details there, but that's how movements are started.
Yeah, I remember when I was younger and I told my mom, I want to be famous so that I can help people. And I was like 5 when I said that. And she just, for many reasons, looked at me like I had lost my mind. And then, of course, I get to this point where I'm able to create a platform through sports. And then I launch this brand and I use it to help people. And I didn't feel like I was helping people when I was in my previous job. I felt like I was talking about sports, which is fine, but I actually felt like I was hurting people. I felt like I was on my high horse, just judging people every day and welcoming other people to judge them with me. If a guy didn't hit a home run and save the game, then he was a failure and a piece of shit, and everyone ragged on him. And I'm like, he's freaking 20 years old.
Right.
What are we doing? Like, these are people. I couldn't get my head wrapped around it. It never made sense to me. Or men that are wearing other men's jerseys up in the stands, screaming at some guy they don't know as if they could do it better. I'm like, bro, get out of here. I know that you couldn't do it better. You just keep eating your hot dog up there. Like that is the culture that I was in. And I just thought, this is not how I am best serving the world. I'm not making an impact in this. And that's why I really felt so passionately about having these conversations. And like you said, thank you for calling it a movement. I do feel like I have changed my own life in that way. And I've had so many people impact me through being willing to really forge ahead and lay the groundwork for the stuff that I'm doing now. And it's really exciting.
It's just crazy to see what opportunities show up when you start doing shit that matters.
Yeah.
And you're really heart-centered and realizing my brand isn't about me. My brand is about impacting others through my story. And then by default, a brand happens. And I see this happen a lot. In fact, I've been very much involved in women's empowerment over the past 9 years of my brand. Number one, I'm a full-time single dad to a almost 18-year-old daughter. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, she's on her way to college.
That's been fun.
Yeah, that's been
those
really exciting.
Years.
Oh, those teen years have been amazing. So actually, in the beginning of the teen years, my sister and I decided, dude, let's just get a place, be roommates again. And we'll emphasize again, like, let's get this kid in college. I'll move in, get her when she goes into high school. There'll be a woman under the roof. And thank God that all played out and worked out good. I had to move back in with my sis, but you never know where life's going to take you. But yeah, she's getting ready to go to college in Phoenix, out in, towards your neck of the woods. So she's excited to get up and get the hell out of here and start, go do. She doesn't know what she wants to do yet either. That's the most exciting part. But she's an introvert, so I don't think she wants to be like an entrepreneur and be on stage in a spotlight. She's like, that's for you, Dad. But it's been a while. But I've been locally here. My friend Michelle Villalobos started a movement down here called the Women's Success Summit, and it ran for about 7 years, and it would be between 600 and 800 women over 2 days, and she would bring speakers in, and it was exactly it. It was an empowerment space for her for people to go, get fired up and feel warm and fuzzy and learn details about business, etc. And then she later on stopped doing those events and started doing her own personal inner circle, where women would join her inner circle for the year and go on a couple of trips a year, and they would formulate their brand and create their brand. Or maybe they were a stay-at-home mom, or maybe they had a job forever and they're looking to make the jump to create their own brand. So I've been very very weaved into that whole entire process. And then my daughter's mentor, was worked for Tony Robbins for 8 years and called me about 8 years ago and said, I'm leaving Tony and moving to Fort Lauderdale. I can't build Tony's dream anymore. I have a dream of helping women be the best versions of themselves. So she ended up moving down here. My daughter ended up meeting her. She went through her program for 2 years. So I can't get away from the women's empowerment. So when I hear your story, it definitely resonates with me, even though I'm a dude. Because there's just so much cool stuff happening and so much life change happening. And I've experienced it. For my daughter to come home after these meetings, that she was part of a mastermind for 2 years, and like the stuff that she would communicate. Like, of course, Dad's not allowed to know anything, but she could be like, "Hey, last night was really special, Dad. I'm really glad I'm part of this." To think that like your 15-year-old's telling you that.
Aww.
So it's great. It really is awesome. And I've been blessed to the fact that I've been, allowed within a certain extent, I'm allowed within these circles here, but it's really cool to see what's happening. For those of you that might just be tuning in for whatever reason, I don't know why you would start a podcast midway through on here, but I am chatting with a rock star named Kelli Tennant. Kelli is the brains behind a podcast and brand called Platform, where she helps women and individuals heal their health and be educated about what her journey's been about, and gives them tools and resources. So speaking of that, make sure that you're connecting with Kelli online. You can find her on Instagram. This is Platform, right?
This is the platform.
Oh, excuse me. That's why I said I was hoping I get a little back. Even though I'm looking right at it in front of me, like notes here.
Can't read. It's okay.
I totally can't. Make sure you're following Kelli. This is the Platform on Instagram. 10 years ago, if you were following me, I'd call the police, but it's the norm today to follow people. So if you're hearing this right now and this is resonating with you and you feel like, hey, you know what? This may be an individual that I need to connect with. Make sure you do that. The website is thisistheplatform.com, and you just launched a brand new program for March, didn't you?
Yeah. So March 18th, we are launching healing. And so I'm taking a group of people through the exact protocol that I've used to heal. So you heal your gut, you detox your life, and you manage your stress. And so I go through every single step over 4 weeks of how I've done that. And I really believe that after 14 years of my health journey of getting to where I am now, it shouldn't have to take so long. So all I ask is that people give me 4 weeks of their time and see what an incredible transformation they can make and get their health back once and for all.
Yeah, the body can heal itself. This is case in point with your story here, and there's resources available. And I don't think a lot of people understand that. They just settle for what the doctor said, and what the doctor said isn't necessarily what the reality is. So Kelli Tennant, I really appreciate the work that you're doing. It's an absolute privilege to connect with you here. It's funny. We go from a television viewership to Instagram to a DM to getting you booked on the show. It's just like, it's never, what in the world do we do 15 years ago? I'm like, Can I have your address? I'll write you a letter with a written request.
If you would like to write me a written request, I will take them.
Awesome. Well, one more time, it's thisistheplatform.com. All of her pertinent links and information, media kit, everything, and all the awesome things she's doing with her brand are available on there. Kelli, this has been a blast. It's been great to finally, uncover the Kelli Tennant mystery. Like, I had bits and pieces of your story. I didn't know the whole thing. So to be able to sit down and hear it all has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
For sure. Any last things for our listeners that you always want to include that we may not have already talked about?
The only thing that I talk a lot about, which has really changed my life, is journaling. And every morning I sit down and journal, and we actually just launched our journal last week. And if you go to thisistheplatform.com/journal, you can find it there. But what it's done for me is allow me to work through a lot of the emotional things that were causing the physical manifestations of pain. And so when you start writing down the things that are stressing you out or the things that are happening in your life, you start to see the patterns of what's affecting you. And rather than take it into your day, you can get it all off your chest. And it's an amazing feeling of relief when you put it out there. And you can also write down the things that you want to bring into your life, the things you want to manifest, the energy that you want to have around you. And you'll start living from a place of abundance and joy and gratitude rather than fear and anger and scarcity. And so I just encourage everyone, if you can, to just sit sit down in the morning, even if it's just for 10 minutes, take some quiet time from yourself and write down those things that you want to get off your heart, the things that you're grateful for, and the things that you would like to have in your life, and just start embodying that and see what happens.
I love that. I literally just get out of my head. I just got an email from my friend Monica yesterday. It was her weekly blog post that said how journaling can rewire your brain.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, maybe I should, but my hand hurts every time I start writing. Like I haven't written anything in a long time. Excuses, right? But the word journaling, and people have been bringing it up to me lately. And of course, we're closing this episode out with your brand new journey. By the way, you're listening to this. You can all of the links that Kelli and myself have mentioned are available in the show notes. So wherever you're consuming podcasts, you'll have a live link right there to the journal, to Kelli's Instagram account, and also to the website. So. All right, this has been a lot of fun, and again, thanks so much for your time. And we'll have to keep in touch, and I look forward to continuing to watch your journey unfold here and supporting you from sunny Miami.
Awesome, thank you so much. Have a great one.
You do the same thing, Kelli. Hey friends, Sebastian again. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Seb Rush Show. I sure do appreciate it. Hey, if you haven't done so already, make your way over to wherever you consume podcasts. Make sure that you're subscribed to the show. This way you'll get notifications as new episodes become available. And if you feel so inclined, please leave us a review. Until next time, I'm signing off from our beautiful studio here in Miami. We'll talk to you next time.